Hello, viewers. Happy New Year. The day of this recording is January 2nd, 2025. I hope everybody had a really happy holiday season. I actually just got a songbird calendar for Christmas. And so, I'm in this video, I am going to discuss s- um 10, not all of my favorite first time watches of the fall and winter of the 2024-2025 school calendar year. Well, meaning like September, October, November, December, that period of time. Um I'm going to talk about like 10 of them, and then I'm going to give awards after. So, and I always do it alphabetically. The first film I'm going to talk about is The Bed-Sitting Room from 1969, directed by Richard Lester. Set in England after a nuclear apocalyptic event, an ensemble of oddball characters try to survive amongst whatever is left. A couple of years have passed since the nuclear war that caused this devastation. The radioactivity from the war destruction is so wonky that it literally turns people into physical inanimate objects. Funny detail about this war was that despite 40 million people being killed, the duration of the war was just under 2.5 minutes. And this includes the amount of time it took for the signing of the peace treaty. There's Captain Blues Martin, played by Michael Hordern, who has a medal celebrating his fault of Buckingham Palace being destroyed. It is called the Medal of Defeat. And a man named Lord Fortnum, played by Ralph Richardson, calls him the Doctor, and he asks for medicine to prevent him from transforming into a bed-sitting room. Marty Feldman plays a male nurse named Arthur, aka National Health Service, who offers a second opinion. And there's a police sergeant and inspector played by Dudley Moore and Peter Cook from Bedazzled. They're in a balloon together and then they constantly yell at survivors to keep moving. And the main focus of the narrative, I'd say the heart of the narrative is a pair of lovers, Alan and Penelope, played by Richard Warwick and Rita Tushingham. And Rita Tushingham was also, I believe, in forgive me for looking this up in the middle of this video. I believe she was also in Richard Lester's other film, The Knack and How to Get It. Yes, she was. I am correct about that. And so Penelope lives on a train with her parents, and she's expecting a child. 17 months pregnant, in fact, to be exact. Alan lives in the train car next door. The two seek out a doctor, to which Marty Feldman's character helps out. And the regional seat of government is a hermit, if you will, named Shelterman. Yes, that's an appropriate character name, as he is glued to old films in the fallout shelter, and he's married to a picture of a woman on the wall. And then things get more absurdly bonkers as the election for a prime minister takes place. The whole cast is an electrifying riot, and the writing is filled with top-notch wit. A good way to think of this movie is to wonder what happened after Doctor Strangelove. It's sort of a mash between Monty Python and Idiocracy in terms of depicting incompetent government. There's also a connection to Triangle of Sadness with the survival element and the satire there. This movie is darkly biting in its satirical takedown of political structures, as well as attachments to meaningless physical objects. What's great is how Lester is able to achieve such satirical social commentary without being preachy or condescending. In fact, it being nonsensical and cartoonish balances the darkness and gives it a light, charming touch. In fact, I would consider the film to be equally cynical and optimistic. Even though this movie depicts the complete idiocy of the government, I think one could come away from this movie with a smile on their face laughing about the complete absurdity of it all. The Bed-Sitting Room is available to watch on Amazon Prime and MGM+. if it hasn't already, I would love to see it get a nice Blu-ray upgrade from Criterion, Kino, or another prestige label. Next up is The Count of Monte Cristo from 2002. This adaptation directed by Kevin Reynolds. This is an adaptation of the classic novel with the same title by Alexandre Dumas. In this swashbuckling adventure, Edmond Dantes, played by Jim Caviezel, is falsely convicted on the day of his wedding for a crime he did not take part in. He is accused by his so-called buddy, played by Fernand Mondego, played brilliantly by Guy Pearce, who was actually envious of him and wanted his lover, Mercedes, played by Dagmara Dominicic. I can't pronounce her last name, but it's like she's Polish, and she's married. The actress is married to Patrick Wilson. He wanted his woman and his position of power. And then during Dante's 14 years in prison, he's mentored by a man named Abe Farah, played by Richard Harris, who offers him timeless wisdom. Dantes escapes from prison to seek revenge on those who wronged him, and to find Mercedes, who now has a son named Albert, played by Henry Cavill. A young Henry Cavill. Dantes takes on a new identity as the Count of Monte Cristo. He has a sort of sidekick / right-hand man named Jacopo, played by Louis Guzman. And while there are differences from the novel, including some character omissions, the spirit and vibes of it still maintains the spirit and vibes of Dumas's novel. The action choreography in this is awesome, and I love the costuming and production design and the performances, especially Guy Pearce. I have yet to see The Brutalist, but I hear Guy Pearce gives an amazing villainous performance, and this makes me excited to see him in that role. Also, can we just acknowledge how hot Guy Pearce is in this movie, especially? The Count of Monte Cristo from 2002 is now available to watch on Disney Plus and Hulu. Next up is, I'm going to talk about an animated film called Everybody Rides the Carousel. I think it's from 1976. Some sites say 1975, some say 76. Directed by John Hubley. This is an animated sort of anthology film with each vignette depicting psychologist Eric Anderson's 8 stages of life. You know, it really drives me crazy in movies and TV shows whenever they bring up psychologists, they immediately bring up Sigmund Freud, who was not the only famous psychologist in history, nor was he the first. The founder of quote-unquote psychology is debatable. Other notable psychologists include Carl Jung, Eric Erickson, Eric Fromm, Carl Rogers, and Abraham Maslow. It's bad enough that movies and TV shows often refer to psychologists and psychiatrists interchangeably when they're 2 different professions. Anyway, Eric Erickson's 8 stages of psychosocial development were 1. Infancy or trust / mistrust. 2. Autonomy versus shame and doubt. 3. Initiative versus guilt. 4. Industry versus inferiority. 5. Identity versus confusion. 6. Intimacy versus isolation. 7. Generativity versus stagnation. And 8. Integrity versus despair. Then each story in Everybody Rides the Carousel is shown as a ride on the carousel of life. You would think for me reading the names of these 8 stages of this movie is dark and depressing, but quite the contrary. It's such a lively, touching, wholesome movie that celebrates the joy of living. I would describe the animation as psychedelic watercolor. The film manages to feel both realistic and otherworldly. It's realistic as far as the dialogue is concerned. The characters talk like everyday individuals and how everyday individuals would in mundane situations. By doing that, John and Faith Hubley highlight the magic of everyday life. Somebody wrote on Letterboxd, Schoolhouse Rock are all the places you can go of birth, life, and death, and the tapestry of questions, decisions, and relationships we encounter on the way. Fun fact, Meryl Streep does a voice in this. So that's Everybody Rides the Carousel. It's available to watch on YouTube. Next up is, I'm going to talk about a live-action Disney movie that for some reason is not available on Disney Plus. It's called Hot Lead and Cold Feet. It's from 1978, directed by Robert Butler. So, okay, after the death of their father, twin men Eli and Billy, both played by Jim Dale, the former a good-willed Salvation Army missionary, and the latter a tough big shot gunslinger slash local saloon owner, battle for the inheritance of their father's land in Bloodshy in Arizona. And their father is also played by Jim Dale. Eli is partnered on his journey with the company of orphan children named Roxanne and Marcus. Billy orders the Sneeds, who are outlaw brothers, to stop Eli from winning the inheritance. Without the knowledge of them being twins, the Sneeds are under the impression that Eli is Billy. Eli and the orphan stagecoach is held up and then run off as a result of the outlaws' interference. Consequently, Eli, Marcus, and Roxanne are forced to travel by foot, and they befriend a woman named Jenny Willingham, played by Karen Valentine, who intends on establishing a school to teach in Bloodshy. They start their own little found family, if you will. Mayor Ragsdale, the executor of the twins' father's estate, organizes a competition composed of a series of wacky games to determine who ultimately earns the inheritance. A major twist occurs that I do not want to reveal because it's super awesome, but it leads to some interesting matters. Fittingly, I watched this movie on Thanksgiving night. And it's a great watch for the whole family. I highly recommend it. It's available to rent for a few dollars on Amazon Prime. Although it's a Disney Plus movie, it's not available on Disney. As I said, it's not available. Although it's a Disney movie, as I said earlier, it's not available on Disney Plus. Somebody should please put this out on Blu-ray. It would look awesome. And so, yeah, that's Hot Lead and Cold Feet. Next up is The President's Analyst from 1967, directed by Theodore J. Flicker. So, Dr. Sidney Schaefer, played by James Coburn, is chosen to be the psychoanalyst to the President of the United States by an assassin from the Central Inquiries Agency, abbreviation CEA, named Don Masters, played by Godfrey Cambridge. Initially, the Federal Bureau of Regulation, or FBR, is not in favor of this decision, but the director, Henry Lux, played by Walter Burke, lets him anyway. Henry Lux is sort of a Herbert Hoover stand-in. He has a vacuum company called Electrolux. The one issue, however, excuse me, is that he is absolutely 100% prohibited from discussing the personal matters of the president. It is strictly confidential. Because of this, Dr. Schaefer becomes increasingly paranoid about the CIA, FBR, and Russian Secret Service trailing him down. He's even concerned that his own kind girlfriend, played by Nan, played by Joan Delaney, is a spy for them. Sure enough, he's tracked down. And while on the run, he takes refuge with the hippies and singers. Flicker is very much satirizing 60s pop hipster culture trends in addition to the sexual revolution. And then James Coburn's character comes across a KGB agent played by Severn Darden. You know, I wonder if Ruben Östlund has seen this, because when James Coburn's character spends time with the Russian, he's on a boat and it very much has vibes of Triangle of Sadness. And it gets even more ridiculous from there. It enters surrealist psychedelic territory. The visuals get super trippy. Somebody on Letterboxd called it a mix between Dr. Strangelove and Rocky and Bullwinkle. And this movie should be talked about more in the canon of great political satires, such as Dr. Strangelove, Network, etc. And what's interesting is how, as a film from the latter half of the 60s, while it highlights Cold War paranoia, it also predated many of the political conspiracy-based films that would arise post-Watergate. As one would imagine, This was a maligned flop upon initial release. People were not ready for it. It has slowly gotten a reevaluation, and rightfully so. It's available to rent for a few dollars on Prime, and there's a really nice Kino Blu-ray. See if you can get it from your library, or a DVD or Blu-ray from your library, because it's a gem. Next up is The Prince of Broadway from 2008, written and directed by Sean Baker. Sorry, I had a cold over the break, and so and there was just some residual tickles. So Lucky is an illegal immigrant from Ghana who hustles on the streets through counterfeit store in the New York fashion district that sells knockoff brand shoes and handbags. His boss Levon is played by Karen Karagulian, who is also in Anora. He's an Armenian immigrant whose green card marriage is on the brink of collapse. Barely scraping by, Lucky gets a major wake-up call to grow up and rethink his life when his former girlfriend leaves the son he didn't know he had with him. As it is, he's trying to make things work with his current girlfriend. Then Lucky is left with no other choice than to take care of the baby. This is probably my favorite Sean Baker film next to Anora. And it's an authentically raw character study, essentially about coming of age and adulthood and learning the hard way how to turn one's life around. Baker depicts the harsh realities of what could happen when living on the fringes of society, while also showing the light within the darkness of that, presenting a character arc that warms your heart. As of January, today, actually, Prince of Broadway will be able to stream on the Criterion Channel. If you do not have that, please get a copy of your library, because this is another gem. And then next up, Kathryn Bigelow's Strange Days from 1995. Set in a version of 1999, 2 days before the turn of the century, LA is a dangerously violent hotspot in which the Black community is warring with the LAPD and SWAT officers. Lenny Nero, played by Ralph Fiennes, used to be a cop, but now he's a dealer of a type of illegal virtual reality device in which those who use these devices sensationally experience the memories of the ones who recorded them. Sorry. This piece of technology is called Superconducting Quantum Interference Device, abbreviation SQUID. And this device is basically like super advanced CDs and a headset, so memories are transferred or re-experienced, if you will, via listening. Lenny has gotten into the pattern of listening to his ex-mistress Faith's recordings. Faith used to be a sex worker, and now she's a club singer. As Lenny yearns for Faith, he is supported by his friends Max Peltier, a PI, and a bodyguard/limo driver named Lornette Mason, who's referred to as Mace. She's played by Angela Bassett, and she's secretly in love with Ralph Fiennes' character, and Lenny gets a call to adventure when one disc has the scene of a murderous raping and killing of a sex worker named Iris. Jericho One, a well-regarded rapper from the African-American community, looks up to is murdered. And then Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett try to figure out the ties between the two murders and deconstruct conspiracy behind it all. This film is brilliant. Of all the movies that took place in years that have passed already, I would say that this one is probably the most, one of, if not the most predictive, minus getting it wrong that we would have a female president, but let's not let's not go there. The usage of the SQUID device is like being glued to one's phone or streaming service. They even say in the film, this is not like TV, only better. Or this is like TV, only better. This is life. It's a piece of somebody else's life. It's pure and uncut, straight from the cerebral cortex. Essentially, Bigelow, in a way, sort of predicted social media tech reality distortion before social media even existed. Strange Days also touches on the intersections between police brutality and racial tensions. It also addresses sexual violence against women. And Kathryn Bigelow has stated that she used the LA race riots as a crucial reference point for the narrative. Above all, it predicts apocalyptic paranoia and political extremism, which is very much present today, obviously. And it's interesting. I read an article explaining how Strange Days is sort of a feminist take on noir, and I'm going to read an excerpt from it. In Bigelow's hands, Mace is a sword of political and radical subjectivity, which adds significance to the love triangle between Lenny, Faith, and Mace, but also supplies a feminist construction. Cameron, of course, is no stranger to strong female characters who subvert patriarchal standards, as evidenced by Ellen Ripley in Aliens or Sarah Connor in Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Indeed, Mace is a muscular, capable black woman whose male counterpart is comparatively ineffectual, soft, and unprincipled. However, unlike Lenny, Mace's moral center remains unclouded. She's direct, whereas Lenny tends to shirk around everything that's not related to his agenda. She's always there to rescue and defend him, and she never shies away from confronting him about his behavior. Sorry. Friendship is more than one person constantly doing favors for another, or making her contempt for his squid hustle apparent. Face it, you sell porno to wireheads. She also proves an indomitable force when confronted, a downright badass when taking on the killer cops or Philo's bodyguards. Bigelow further rethinks gender norms in Hollywood movies through Mace's black female subjectivity, reassigning power from the usual white male hero to a character who proves more complex and compelling than Lenny. She becomes what scholar Christina Lane called a voice of critique of the dominant ideology driving the story. So yeah, that's Strange Days. Really incredible film. Unfortunately it's quite hard to find. I know at one point it was on Max, but not anymore. There is a DVD. I watched it on a DVD I rented from the library. So maybe you can get it that way. But yeah, that's Strange Days. Next up is Tango and Cash from 1989, directed by Andrei Konchalovsky and Albert Magnoli. Ray Tango, played by Sylvester Stallone, and Gabe Cash, played by Kurt Russell, are policemen specialized in narcotics. They have the goal of busting down a drug lord named Yves Perret, played by Jack Palance. Sorry. Perret frames the titular duo for the murder of an FBI agent. Stallone and Russell's characters are brought to prison, and they have come up with the ultimate escape plan and take down Jack Palance's character once and for all with assistance from Tango's sister Catherine, played by Terry Hatcher, who's an exotic dancer. It's really funny. Cash has a crush on Catherine, and there are times in the movie where he asks Tango, "Can I date your sister?" If you want some big, dumb, ridiculous fun, I recommend you watch this. The buddy cop chemistry between Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell is hysterical. They feed off and bounce off one another. The way they do that is so on point in terms of star power, driven charisma, comedic timing, and action buildup. The two are such lovable idiots. Somebody wrote on Letterboxd, the reason Tango says "over my dead body" at the end is because he wants Cash all for himself. Tango and Cash is available to rent for a few dollars on Prime and is on DVD. I'm not sure about its Blu-ray availability, but I would love to see this get a 4K upgrade. If any label, if you're listening, please put this out. All right, we got 3 more. Next up is A Town Called Panic from 2009, directed by Stéphane Aubier and Vincent Pataris. Forgive me if I'm for the mispronunciation. So this is a stop motion animated film with little miniatures in a cute village. It resembles little mini towns and figurines in the I Spy books. And that's a good, I'm meaning that in a good way. I know that when Megalopolis came out, there was like this meme going around on Twitter, like comparing Adam Driver's character's architecture to like the designs in I Spy. Anyway, so the main characters in a town called Panic are an unnamed cowboy, an Indian, and a horse. And Cowboy and Indian are organizing a birthday barbecue for Horse. They want to build a barbecue pit, and so they order bricks. Cowboy and Indian originally intended for 50 bricks. However, they accidentally ordered 50 millions, and the house they share gets destroyed. When they try to reconstruct the home, the bricks are constantly snatched by cone-headed sea creature thieves. Sorry. Our three heroes try to track the sea creatures down, and it leads them on a crazy, surrealist path into the core of the earth, a frozen tundra, and an underwater dimension. This movie's a blast from start to finish. It's playfully nonsensical and gets continuously bonkers as the story goes on. And for all its wackiness, it's an uplifting story about coming together as a community in the midst of total chaos. Through it all, we can laugh and have a great adventure. A Town Called Panic is available to watch for free on Plex, and it's on DVD and Blu-ray. Next up is Welcome or No Trespassing from 1964, directed by Elem Klimov, the director of Come and See. This is a Russian film, so set in a Soviet young pioneer camp, the narrative follows children as they try to break through the restrictions and regulations put upon them by the camp administrators. For historical context's sake, the Young Pioneers movement was a youth organization created for children and young teens in the Soviet Union through 1922 all the way to 1991. It was handled by the Communist Party. They had summer camps, which were vacation spots for the children, part of the pioneer movement. And one day, a boy named Kostya Inuchin gets in trouble for swimming to an island rather than remaining in the assigned swimming section. Consequently, he faces expulsion from the camp and is ordered home. Because Kostya fears that his grandmother at home will be upset, he sneaks back into the camp and takes refuge in secret with some other kids in the camp away from the grown-ups. It becomes a matter of the campers outwitting the adult camp staff. This movie is a cleverly charming delight. Certainly, Elem Klimov is critiquing totalitarianism. However, rather doing so in a super bleak fashion, he presents hope with a story filled with whimsy and wonder. I can definitely see where Wes Anderson could have got inspiration for Moonrise Kingdom, and I wonder if Taika Waititi uses that as inspiration for Jojo Rabbit. Somebody on Letterboxd described Welcome or No Trespassing as a Russian Little Rascals. This would also make a good pairing with a French film, Forbidden Games. Welcome or No Trespassing is available to watch on YouTube. It's a hidden gem. Go check it out. Criterion, if you're listening, put this out on Blu-ray. And then lastly, The White Dove from 1960. This is a Czech film directed by František. Its initials are FV. This I watched on the Criterion channel, and so a German girl named Suzanne has a dove. One day, Suzanne's dove flies away and arrives in Prague, and in Czechoslovakia, and a boy named Mikhail, experiencing a physical ailment of paralysis, finds the bird as it's injured, and he actually what's the sad thing is that the 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 boy was the one who caused the injury because he shot the bird by accident. But then Michael, it's spelled like Michal. He's helped out by a man named Martin, who's a sculptor, and together they nurse the dove back to health. This film is poetically beautiful. It has exquisitely breathtaking cinematography. The shots of the dove's flight are incredible. Beyond that, even the shots of Michal looking out the window have a sublime quality to them. It's a story about empathy and compassion told through such means. It's wonderfully sweet. I really recommend you give this a watch. You can watch The White Dove on Criterion Channel, as I said, and YouTube. So now to the awards. Sorry. For Best Editing, The President's Analyst, 1967. For Best Sound, Pulse, from 2001, the Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Pulse. For Best Score, Hans Zimmer, Backdraft. No, I should have prefaced this saying that not all the films I'm awarding were I spoke about, but because because obviously didn't have time to talk about all my first time watches, but you get what I mean. For Hair and Makeup, John Waters' Female Trouble, 1974. For Costumes, Zoo, Warriors from the Magic Mountain from 1983. For Production Design, A Town Called Panic from 2009. For Cinematography, Black and White, The White Dove, 1960. Cinematography, Color, Strange Days, 1995. For Supporting Actress, same as the Horror Awards winner, Sandy Newton, Beloved, 1998. For Supporting Actor, Guy Pearce, The Count of Monte Cristo, 2002. For Adapted Screenplay, John Antrobus and Charles Wood, The Bed-Sitting Room from 1969. It's based on a play. For Original Screenplay, Semyon Lungin and Ilya Nusanov for Welcome or No Trespassing, 1964. For Lead Actress, Jill Banner for Spider Baby, 1967. For Lead Actor, Jim Dale for Hot Lead and Cold Feet, 1978. For playing 3 different roles. For Best Acting Ensemble, Strange Days from 1995. Everybody's amazing in that movie. For Best Director, Catherine Bigelow for Strange Days. And Best Picture, you guessed it, Strange Days from 1995. Well, it was a pleasure watching, sharing this with all my first time watches with all of you. If you liked this video, you could click the like button and subscribe. The link to my socials are in the description. And yeah, thank you for watching. Happy New Year. Goodbye for now.